So if you've got a Traxxas Sledge, you're going to need to know how to access the differentials for either maintenance or just checking or replacing any parts. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to do exactly that on the front, center, and rear differentials. So let's get right into it. Okay, so let's go ahead and start on the front differential. So to get started, if you do have a bumper like me, you do not have to remove this. All we're going to have to do is remove these 6 2.5mm hex screws around the outside of the differential case. And after I've loosened them, I'm going to go ahead and use a drill to take them off the rest of the way. And this is totally up to you, whether you have one or not. So after you've removed these screws on the front, we've got to go ahead and get this center screw out of the middle. So after you've got that screw out, go ahead and just grab it with some pliers and wiggle it off. There it is. This thing gave me quite a bit of trouble, but once it's off, you can take your differential out, check it, service it, whatever, and then put this back on and put the screws back in. Alright, so moving on to the center differential here. The first thing that we're going to have to do is just take off the tires with our 17mm hex nut. So now, once we have our tires off, we're going to have access to the screws to take off the crossbar so that we can get this cover off of our center differential, which is also the mount holding it to the chassis. So these are just going to be two 2.5mm screws in the corners. And then the crossbar right here, go ahead and just lift up the front and pull out from the back. And it doesn't really matter which way you want. So if you want Traxxas either going this way, this way, this way, it doesn't really matter which way you want to orient it, putting it back on. But now what we have to do is take out these 4 2.5mm screws holding the cover for the differential on. So now, this cover will just lift off, and you can clean this if you'd like, but as you can see, mine's not too dirty. So now, just lift up your differential and take the drive shafts out, but make sure you don't pull them out because they are inside of cups, inside of the boots here in the corners. But now, as you can see, we have here our center differential. So I'm going to go ahead and do some maintenance on this guy, just making sure the fluid is at the correct level, cleaning it a little bit, and we're going to be good to put it back in. So once you've done your maintenance to your differential or whatever you're going to be doing to it, you can come back in here and it's just the reverse process. So grab up one drive shaft, put it into the drive shaft cup. You're going to have to grab the other one. Most of the time, some needle nose pliers will help do this a lot easier. Tilt down the differential. Make sure you get this guy in there all the way, and then seat that down, making sure the bearings are seated nicely. And then it's always just a good idea to check your gear mesh. Now, on the Traxxas Sledge, it already has a gear mesh block, so it's a fixed gear mesh, but this is still typically a good idea just to make sure everything is still good, and mine does look like it. So then simply place over your cover onto the differential again, 4 screws, and screw this thing down. So then once your differential cover is on, you just have to do the reverse of putting in the chassis brace. So stick it into the back like that, slide it in, and it is a little bit tight. Put it down into the front, and the screws for this are pin screws, so you're going to have to slide them in first and then put the threads in. And that's not going anywhere. Okay, so now for the rear differential, I have taken the wing off so that you can see better, but you definitely do not have to do that. And something that you're probably going to want to do, as you could see me do on the front, is take off at least one of the shocks, just making it so much easier to get the differential out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. So now we can just pull this out. 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 So now once we have taken the shock off, we just have to remove the 6 outer screws on the differential case, just like the front. Make sure you hit every single screw, including the one on the bottom, because that thing is solid. So now, just like on the front, take that one out, just like that. And as you can see here, the rear differential has O-rings in the rear drive cups to help keep the dog bones in there from flying out. So definitely make sure that you don't lose these in this process. Set them somewhere where you won't lose them, and I think I already lost one. There's my other O-ring. So you can probably guess by now, we're just going to take apart the diff and check the fluid. Now I don't think I've mentioned this already, but if you are taking apart your diffs, make sure to be really careful around this gasket right here, because if you tear that, your differential won't seal, and you're going to have to replace it. Alright, the diff has all of the fluid in it now, so now I'm going to just put some grease on here, because we wiped most of that off. Right now I'm just rubbing this to make sure it gets into all of the gears, because that's really what we're trying to protect here. Now a lot of that will spread around once the gears start moving around each other, but I'm going to just put some on my pick here and then get it in onto the pinion. We're going to slide that one in. Lift it up a little bit, that side, and then slide the diff in just like that. And now we're going to be ready for our cover. Just make sure it's seated in nicely. So now we got to slide our cover on, just like that. So now we've got to put our 6 screws back in. Some of you might be thinking this right now, but I forgot my O-ring. Wow. So instead of taking the differential out, because I just got these screws back in, I'm going to go ahead and just take the hubs off, rotate the axle drive shaft out, get the O-rings in, and that will be good. But before we do that, we need to make sure to get our bottom screw for the differential cover in. And just like that, it's all good.